What's up everyone, welcome back to a brand new video. Today I want to talk about probably definitely one of my favourite Resident Evil games of all time. And it's a shocker for most people when I say I really like it, because people are like, oh, this is the start of where the series went bad, or this was like, just not a good game in general, and I strongly disagree. It's Resident Evil 5, by the way. And, it's definitely in my top 4, not number 1 or 2, but it's in the top 4. And I think that the game is incredible, and there's a lot of reasons why I think that, and there is a few things that could be better about it, but we're going to talk about it in general and what I like about it most. I don't want to shit talk the game. I think too many people do that online, so we're just going to talk about the game, why I like it so much, and then go from there. So if you like Resident Evil 5 as well, be sure to leave a comment as to why. Remember to leave a like on the video if you do enjoy. And be sure to subscribe for more Resident Evil, horror and Souls-like content on the channel. We upload every day and stream every weekend, so there's always something going on. And without further ado, let's jump into it. First and foremost, the backstory as to why I like the game so much. Resident Evil 5 was essentially the entry point to the series for me. Again, this game came out when I was kind of in the early teens, and I played the demo of it. There was a demo of it, which was a very popular thing to do back in the PS3 days. There was a lot of demos for games, and I was just in love with it. I remember I used to buy PlayStation magazines in the UK, and there was like a big kind of spotlight on Resident Evil 5, and I was just like, yes, I need to play this game. And then what happened was, my stepdad now is a massive fan of the original games, and he bought the game at launch, and I saw him play bits of it with a friend of his, because the game is co-op, and I was like, yes, yeah, I need to play this game, and eventually I did. I distinctly remember a night I went to a friend's place, and we stayed up all night and all the day till I'm playing through 5 and 6. This is actually when I finally got to play the game. My parents were quite strict when I was younger about playing this type of thing, so when I was eventually able to play the game, I played it all the way through in one sitting, and then Resident Evil 6 immediately after, which was a completely different experience. But yeah, Resident Evil 5 started the love for the series for me, and that kind of pushed me on the path to play every single one. And even to this day, I still think it's the best video game series out there in my personal taste. But 5 is definitely up there for a multitude of reasons. This is just why it has such an impact on me personally. Let's just talk about the elephant in the room for a moment. Yes, it's an action game. Now, Resident Evil isn't really an action game for the most part. Look at the first 3, look at 7, 4 and 8, 5 and 6 do kind of shift that a little bit, but 4 and 8 kind of keep it toned down slightly, and then 5 and 6 really emphasize it. I did pronounce that right. They do really kind of put a massive emphasis on the action, which personally for me isn't a bad thing, like it's nice to kind of change it up, and it's nice to kind of have a different pace to go at for a little bit. And if you kind of take into account the kind of story of the game, which is kind of stupid, that's kind of one of my one little peeves about Resident Evil 5. It's quite generic in terms of stories, like evil bad guy wants to take over the world and wipe out the human race. It's generic kind of thing. But if you take into account the situation, the action is probably it makes sense. And let's not forget, it still has those kind of survival elements in it. You have quite strong enemies that require a good amount of ammo. The inventory, while it's not really limited, you do have kind of a minimum amount of space you can carry things, and then someone else has to carry it, which is either the AI or your friend, whoever you're playing with. So it's kind of a shared inventory. But either way, obviously one thing takes up one slot. It's not like a Resident Evil 4 system where like a gun will cover a certain point. It's like, here's a slot, this is where this thing goes, and it's an individual slot for each item you carry, whether it's ammo, a gun, or healing, or whatever. Speaking of the guns in this game, there is a lot of variation in this game, which is always a plus. There is a multitude of different shotguns, different pistols, different machine guns, a rocket launcher, a grenade launcher, a stun rod. There's a lot going on, there's a lot of choices. Even a bow and a minigun can be a choice. So there's a lot of variation, and that really does add to the replayability. You can kind of pick a certain weapon of a certain type, like say you pick the striker shotgun, you pick the bolt action sniper, and just the default pistol, right? You play through the game, get the treasures to get the cash to upgrade them to max, so you unlock their infinite versions, and then you can completely switch weapons, and they do act in different ways. Yes, they're essentially a handgun, a shotgun, and a sniper, but they all have different stats and different increase in stats, so you can kind of play a different way with them, and it does really add the variation to the game. And as well as your inventory, there is also kind of a lot of variation in enemy. Just throw a couple of examples out there. There's the default Magini, there's the chainsaw guys, there's the fat guys, there's the dogs, there's the flying things, there's the fucking minigun guys near the end of the game that are just tanky as hell. There's a lot of enemies in this game, a lot of variation, which is also very, very cool. I like having more tools and things to fight, and it takes a nice change of pace again from just fighting like zombies, just waves of zombies. Obviously Resident Evil does have variation, but this game probably has the most variation you can see. The next big point of the game is of course the co-op. It is a 2-player game after all. The AI in this game, again another nudge at the game a little bit, the AI is a bit dim. It's not the best, you can kind of get screwed over by it. And a perfect example of this is, say you need a healing item and you have no space, so you have the AI to pick it up, and even if you're like, if you've lost like a fraction of your HP, at times it'll just heal you, and it's like, that wasn't necessary. So the AI can be a bit dim, but obviously it's best played with another person, because then you have full communication and not a bot that's just kind of getting themselves killed or not keeping up or using items unnecessarily. It does make the game feel a bit more clean when you're playing with someone, especially someone you know. Like, playing with randoms is one thing, but playing with a friend is a completely different experience. Again, I played the game through in a day, in one sitting with a friend, and it was a blast. It was hilarious, it was funny, it was hard. There was a lot going on, and it kept us very much engaged with the game. I do want to briefly touch on the story a little bit more. Obviously the story, like I've said, isn't that great. It's kind of generic again, you know, bad guy wants to take over the world. And it is kind of the finishing moments for Wesker in the storyline. And he does kind of turn into that super Neo type Wesker. So not many people people like him, but then some people don't. I'm kind of on the fence about it. I think it's a cool idea, but something to keep in mind with Resident Evil storylines, especially after 1 and 2, I would say, maybe 3 as well. The stories kind of feel like those mid-tier horror movies, you know what I mean? Like, they're not completely dumb. They do take themselves seriously at times, but they're not like the most, what's the word? They just don't really make a whole lot of sense for the most part. They have dumb moments in them that just kind of like sticks out like a question. It's like, this just happened. What the hell? Like, there's a lot of that, especially the whole end scene for this game, and that's very notorious for being completely over the top. You are literally fighting in a volcano. Like, that's the entire point of what I'm trying to say. They don't take themselves too seriously for the most part. Some of them do try to, at least a little bit more, and I think some of them do make sense to take themselves seriously. For example, the most serious ones I could probably take from the series are the 1st, the 2nd, and 7. I think they're the most serious ones of the lot. 3 as well, to an extent. Again, a bit more. People do say 3, the original 3, is a bit more action focused than the first 2, while still keeping that original feel. But 1, 2, and 7, for me, are probably the ones that try and take themselves seriously, and it works. But the rest kind of try and take themselves seriously at times, and it doesn't work. Which, again, is not a dig at all. I've watched many a horror movie in my time, and some are great, some are awful, and then some are like this, where they're dumb, but they're entertaining. And in some ways, that makes sense. You know what I mean? Like, it's not the best thing ever, but it's entertaining, and it's fun to watch, or fun to play, you know? And, again, not a dig. The cheesy storylines, and the set pieces in these games are sometimes over the top, and that's kind of like part of the charm, you know, for me anyway. But overall, I would say Resident Evil 5 is a damn solid experience. If you kind of, I don't know if, you know, anyone watching this video hasn't played the game, or just doesn't really like the game. If you don't like the game, I do understand the whole side of the coin where it's like, it doesn't feel like a Resident Evil game because it's all action, and I do understand that. I completely get it. I enjoy both aspects of the games, whether it's a horror focused game or an action focused game. Some are worse than others. For example, there was a video made a couple days ago about Operation Raccoon City. You can go check that out if you want, because oh boy, that game's bad. But RE5 is up there as one of my favourite games, and definitely one of my favourite Resident Evil games. And if you haven't played it before, I would really recommend you check it out. Don't let people's opinions of it kind of sway you. Always play a game first, and make your own opinion before you kind of agree with someone else's. Again, if you have played the game and did enjoy it, let me know why you enjoy it. If you have played the game and didn't enjoy it, again, let me know why you didn't enjoy it. But yeah, thank you for watching. Remember to leave a like on the video, and subscribe for more Resident Evil, Souls, and horror content. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you all tomorrow.